Hey, welcome in. I'm Rita, and this is the story I'm telling myself. If you've ever felt like you're standing in your own way, you are not alone. Let's get into it. Happy Tuesday, friends. Welcome to the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast. I'm so glad that you are back with us live. And if you are catching this, it's Thursday on the podcast. So glad that you are listening. Today, we welcome a dear friend, Nathan Stuck. Nathan, welcome to the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast. So glad to have you.
So great to finally be here. I don't know if you noticed this, I wore my Louisville shirt just for you. My Muhammad Ali shirt. I was like, let me go Louisville theme today for Rita. So anyway, it's good to be here.
And your trash man hat.
And I did do some. I don't know if I think I sent you some pictures. I did some cleanups while I was up there last summer. So
Yes.
yeah, had some fun picking it. I mean, it's hard to walk past trash and not pick it up. You're like, I have a collapsible grabber, so I bring it on vacations with me. It's volunteerism.
So I'm going to let you introduce yourself to everyone. But before I turn the mic over to you, if you are joining us live, again, thank you for being with us. Come hop in the comments. Welcome Nathan to the podcast. Tell us where you are joining us from. But Nathan, tell everybody who you are.
Yes, so founder and chief impact strategist at Profitable Purpose Consulting. Also the founder and executive director of Be Local Georgia and Build Southeast, which is a regional B Corp conference for the Southeastern United States. I would say I'm the social impact guy, just all things B Corps, mission-driven enterprises, social enterprises, just promoting that and just this dream of reimagining capitalism as we know it and trying to we were talking before we came on live about building the beloved community. So serve on some nonprofit boards as well, the Minority Business and Nonprofit Association, the Athens Homeless Coalition, which would lead me to tell you that I'm based in Athens, Georgia, and spend a lot of my time between Athens and Atlanta. Also a part-time lecturer at the University of Georgia where I teach a class on B Corps.
So you can connect with Nathan on LinkedIn. It's Nathan R. Stuck.
A Stuck.
Right? A Stuck. Sorry, Nathan A. Stuck on LinkedIn if you're looking for him. And again, put Georgia in there and you're very likely to find him or snag this link, and that will be available in the show notes as well. And we're going to get right into it because that's what we want to give people what they came here for. So Nathan, I met you we met at CultureCon. Shout out to Nick and Zach for a great conference. CultureCon.
Ironically, that's my 12:15 call today too. With Nick and Zach. I didn't even realize that. Sorry.
And so we sort of really connected because in conversation, what I recognized in you was somebody that was as purpose-driven as I was. You're a very purpose-driven person, and you really let that lead and guide you. But you had this epiphany. We named this, are you an arsonist or an architect? And you had this epiphany recently about what it really means to operate from your passion and get in your own way. And with that little intro, would you walk us into the story about how you really came to this arsonist architect understanding about the work you were doing?
So I first heard it at an event like 2 years ago. I think it was Janelle Williams from what used to be the Atlanta Black Wealth Initiative. It's now Kindred Futures. And I heard her say this, and we were talking about, I think she was just talking about young people and this like, how do we smoke this out? And so I asked her afterwards, I was like, that was brilliant. I love it. I wrote that down. And she was like, I didn't come up with it. She's like, you can steal it. And so I just but it just kept sitting in my brain. And, and I've watched it even in the B Corp community in the last couple of years, this, like when Nespresso joined and like somebody else sent me another link yesterday, some B Corp left because they don't want to be in the same community as Nespresso. And I respect that. But as I look at what we're building, I've been torn because, you look at what sins of the past are irredeemable, and like how are we the arbiters of like determining that? And honestly too, like I heard another quote recently, and I talked my wife into letting me get the tattoo, and then I did not get the tattoo yet, but it's the Oscar Wilde quote of all saints have a past, all sinners have a future. And so I
Oh,
think
I
about
love
some,
that.
oh
Yes.
my God. I forget who it was talking. It was one of the guys who now I'm drawing a blank on his name. Ed Freeman, I think, was like the godfather of like the stakeholder, kind of like the stakeholder version of Milton Friedman. So, and I heard him speak a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned that quote, and I was like, that quote is fantastic, because if you look back at a lot of these organizations, I mean, anything that's been around for more than 50 years, you're not going to really love what you find when you start opening closet doors up. And I've run into that even at my beloved University of Georgia, where I had a student one year, and it kind of came to me with that look, and I'm like, okay, which door did you open? Like what did you find? Because the past just isn't pretty, and there are a lot of things of historically in this country and around the world that, just if you look far enough back at some of these big enterprises or universities or organizations, even the Salvation Army. I had somebody kind of give me grief for meeting with the captain here in Athens. They do such a great job of getting people experiencing homelessness back into stable lifestyles and into housing. And I think 2024 it was like 187 people they got. And I clean up, that's my adopt a highway. The Salvation Army's on it. Like, how, like, I realized that, like, from an LGBTQ standpoint, they were not the most friendly, but like, I'm also trying to get these people off the street. Like, I've gotten to know so many of them through my trash cleanups, and I know them. They clean up with me. You're looking for this like perfect solution to some of our problems, and we're burning down decent solutions that maybe could use a hand to just do better. So I don't know. I've just been like, how do we build the beloved community? How do we build this society that we want to live in, this reimagined version of capitalism, if nothing is good enough, if everything, like, one, and even I mean, we got caught up in that for a while, and even in the B Corp community, where I've done things where people are like, I don't like how he's doing it, and you're like, am I being canceled? You're like, I'm sorry, you don't like the way I'm doing the work, and there's usually something to learn from your haters or from your detractors. And there's that journey too, even individually, of like, when we do slip up, how do we, okay, help me be better and help me improve. But to a certain extent, I just don't understand this need to, like, I don't understand how we're going to move forward if the only way to move forward is first to burn everything to the ground, when I think we have perfectly good, what do they say, like, the foundation's strong, or like the bones of a house, you talk about restructuring,
Right.
the bones are good. So it's like, okay, let's leave the bones, and then let's rebuild. We can put in new windows, we can put a new roof on, but I don't know that we have to raise everything to move forward, and I don't know that it's the most efficient way.
Yeah, well, I mean, the house thing is a great metaphor, because there are people that can look at a property in significant disrepair and see possibility, right?
Mhm.
They can imagine something different with that space. And there are other people that, if they walk through a house and if it's not perfect, if it doesn't check every box that they have in their mind, they're not imagining a way to create the space they want. They just want to go buy it immediately. And so it one of the things that I talk about a lot in my work with companies is this internal narrator judge voice that we have. And our judge is very, very strong and controls much of our life without us even recognizing that it's happening. It's happening at such a subconscious level. And then you layer on top of that, now we have social movement of cancel culture, right? And we have such divisiveness. There's not a lot of middle ground right now. It's very polarized. And so people are just digging in deeper. They're not getting curious. They're not trying to learn. They're not open to letting other people. It's just, we're trying to make things very black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you layer all of these things on, and it's not surprising that we are in this place where, like you said, it's the overriding thing is, we're going to judge you for the worst days of your life, whether you have moved through that moment and emerged as somebody different or better on the other side of it.
Well, I mean,
And
yeah. I mean, I was gonna say it comes back to progress over perfection. Like,
yes.
I think that back to that every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. Like, this notion of celebrating progress of like, and even like, and I've been open with like my burnout and in my little journey of mental health. Because I think honestly, I wish I would have maybe heard some. I mean, I'm sure I probably just ignored people talking about it, but I'm going to be very open with my story. But like even the progress of that, of like, like of just celebrating that, like, no, I'm not fixed yet. Like, and my burnout is not gone. The anxiety, like the panic attacks have not ceased, but I'm making progress. Like, you know what I mean? Like even I'm working with a growth coach at Atlanta. That's amazing. And she was like, I want to commend you because like when we started working together, you were in a really bad place and you have come so far. I know you don't realize that. And I think we have to do some of that with some of these problems is we want to solve things like immediately, not realizing that like we're not the first generation to take on civil rights. We're not the first generation to take on, whether that's from a Black African American perspective, whether it's from an immigrant perspective, whether it's from an LGBTQ perspective or a feminist perspective, like we're not the first generation to take these issues on. We're not the first generation to try to tackle homelessness. Now it has gotten really bad, but like these are the things that like we have to understand that we are solving really long problems, and a lot of the work that we're doing. I don't know. I mean, I remember hearing Jay Bailey from the Russell Center tell me, and I know it's not his quote, but he said it on the podcast and it hit me like planting the seeds of trees whose shade will never sit under. Like, that's what we're doing. And so I think, if you're planting these seeds and we're planting these trees, like just because you can't see the shade doesn't mean that you didn't plant the tree. And I don't know. I think we've just gotten into this, like, like you said, the black and white, the 0 or 1, like, there's no room for nuance. There's no
Well,
room.
and you're naming another thing, the immediacy. Like if as a society we were in the marshmallow experiment, we would all be failing. We'd all be just shoving the marshmallow in immediately. There's, instant gratification only.
Well, and I mean, there is like, and I think that we get so hung up on like doing it the right way, and then I think you've also scared away a lot of people with like the cancel element of like afraid of doing it the wrong way. And in reality, I think we just all put a little bit of effort into doing something. One, I look at like the ripples, like, one bag of trash, like I picked up one yesterday while I talked to my growth coach, walking and talking and grabbing trash. And like, I saw it the other day, so I know where it is. It's still there. It's been iced for 2 days, so it's probably thawed out and I can go get it. And it's like just that one bag of trash every time, that one bag of trash, or the one, person that you talk to, and like homeless outreach and some of this stuff. Like if we all just focused on like doing work, and doing one small thing and one good deed every day, I think we would do a lot better than worrying about how somebody else did their one good deed or what they're doing. Like stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and focus on what you can control and putting some good into the world. I don't know. I think it would.
One of those things that our judge does that is
Sorry,
very
no,
very
just falling off the roof and scaring the living what out of me.
And destabilizing to relationships to ourselves is the policing. That when our judge is at her worst, my judge is Miranda from The Devil Wears Prada, slides and just cut you off. But we all have that of our judge who is policing. She would like be taking people's outfits the moment they walk through the door, right, and making judgments about them, right? And policing the way they dressed. And we police people all the time, and we especially police people around their language, around their choices, right? And I can remember when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, it was this activation for a lot of women in the U.S. to be like she was the one who wrote the best dissenting opinions that stood for a lot of women's rights, that moved the needle, that knew how to get in and meet the system where it was and use the power of her intellect to push that system to new places. She didn't come burn it all down, right? She didn't have the power or authority to do that. but she learned how to meet the system where it was and move it forward. And she was very important to so many of us. And so I joined some women's groups that were sort of in a kind of organizing and really starting to talk about, like, how do we make sure that how can we start now to make sure her legacy lives, to make sure that we are protecting the rights for our future daughters and granddaughters. And what happened is the community fell apart because people were so busy policing each other's language in the chats and getting hurt over the way somebody said something and they didn't say it the way it should have been said, and it just fractured the communities. They didn't work. And when you and I were talking about this episode in our planning, you talked about a similar thing happening for you in the B Corp space, and where you found that ability to meet people where they were and to see this charge of progress was a new learning for you. Will you tell that story to our listeners?
Yes, as I said, I would move on from this story, but yeah, no, I will, I will tell it. No, I mean, I think honestly too, I mean, we started doing Build Southeast in 2020 virtual because we were bored. And then it grew into something really cool. In 23, we decided to do it in Raleigh. 24 was Atlanta. This last year was St. Pete. This year is going to be DC. I know it's not technically the Southeast, but it's part of our region. But they have a lot in common with us. If you go into Virginia, like parts of that B local mid-Atlantic area are very Southeastern. And then you get closer to DC and maybe it's a little more New York, but whatever. So we're doing it in DC this year. It's going to be great. But yeah, I noticed early on, like the first year, we had a lot of people show up that weren't from the Southeast in Raleigh. And, we had some of these conversations around language, and we had some of these conversations around, because we were kind of at the forefront of like, hey, we got to it's like becoming a liability for us down here. Like what sells in Portland doesn't necessarily, honestly, it's a liability in a lot of parts of the South. And, I spent a lot of time in Kentucky. And so getting to know the people behind Canopy and like seeing this beautiful community they've built that is very common language focused, of just like, hey, we all agree that we want safe neighborhoods and clean water and all these things. And I noticed from like the parts of the country that weren't the South, they couldn't wrap their heads around it. And it didn't really dawn on me until a friend from California said that I love living in California. I can say whatever the F I want. And I was like, oh, there's no difference of like, versus us, where it's like, you might go to the bar on the corner and sit next to somebody who is on the opposite end of the political spectrum. Like I think we've trained this muscle down here to find the common ground. So like if I have to start talking SEC football to like get like let's build some rapport, and then we can kind of, but I think we also, because we have such diversity of friends, I think that and neighbors, I think we also have maybe practiced a little more empathy, and we understand. And so maybe there's a little more willingness to compromise. And so as we've done this conference, like it's happened a couple of times now where people have very like, in a weird way, instead of coming and kind of listening and seeing what works in the South, they've projected like, this is how I think you should do the work. And it happened real big in Atlanta. And it was just it's a very bizarre, I mean, I learned a lot from them of like, obviously I wouldn't come and tell people what to do in Portland, Maine or Portland, Oregon, or Denver, Colorado. I get that it's different there, but I think it was very eye-opening to me to realize that when you put something very beautiful on that speaks to the local flavor and the local culture and the local work on the ground, like we had at a panel in Atlanta called "If You're Here for the Work, There's a Seat at the Table," and it was a reaction to what was happening to me and to my host committee, and was like, look, this is how we roll down here. Like this is just kind of, I mean, and people still, I mean, I noticed like the folded arms that showed up at that kind of like, they were like pitchforks for me. And it was like, by the end of it, everybody was kind of like, oh, maybe he's onto something. It's like, so it was just a very bizarre experience to feel that like vitriol, like where you're like, am I being canceled right now? By people who don't,
none of us
they
want
don't
to
know
be
your work
judged.
though. Like they literally are just judging your work based off of like what they heard. And it becomes this game of telephone. Like, oh my God, did you hear what Nathan did? And it's like, And then in reality, it's like, did you hear the rest of the stuff that Nathan's doing? It's like, but it was
So for
because I
people who
did
are
like DEI a different way than they were used to. It was like, oh, well, then, and it's at 0-1. Like, if he's doing DEI not the way we're used to, then he must be racist. It was like, whoa, hey, hang on here. It's just a very, like, if you hang out with the Salvation Army, you must be anti-LGBT. And it's like, oh, but I'm pro-homeless, and there's some nuance here. Like, can I share my perspective? And so it's been this, I don't know, but I think going through it definitely opens your eyes to this. Like, how do you have these conversations, and how do you bring more nuance into these conversations? But it also is terrifying because you realize how far apart we are, where it was like, I jokingly say that all the time. Like, I vote the same way as a lot of people that don't seem to like me. Who's like, keeping on the Louisville theme, the Jack Harlow line. There's a song where he says, "The people that hate me the most look just like me." You tell me what that means. So that line has resonated with the first time I heard it. I was like, repeat, just start it over. I want to hear that line again. So like starting to realize, like, it's like, man, these are people on my own team that I can't get to common ground with, and trying to figure out, okay, how is this ever going to work with these two basically like opposing teams right now that seem to hate each other, and how much work we have left to do. So I don't know. It's forced me to do a lot of like introspection and reflection, and honestly, but it's also encouraged me to just have more and more conversations with people that maybe I don't agree with, and I think I've grown a lot out of it. And I think honestly, even the B Corp community, I think a lot of good came out of that, of understanding maybe a little more nuance of like one broad stroke doesn't work for everybody in this country, this continent, Canada. I mean, you think about like B-Lab US and Canada. It's a lot of different cultures and people and demographics and perspectives.
Well, luckily, our podcast is international, and there are probably some listeners that don't really know anything about B Corp. So, can you give us like the 5-sentence? What is B Corp, and what are they all about, and why? So that we give them just a little hook and hanger around what you're talking about.
Yeah, B Corps are for-profit businesses certified. I would say certified as doing good by the nonprofit B Lab. It's way more complicated than that. They actually just rolled out new standards, but essentially you go through an assessment and you have to prove that you do all these things, good things. So looking at like philanthropic activity, looking at like worker pay, worker benefits, looking at diversity, equity, inclusion metrics. Like, I mean, and really helping companies get better at that too. I think that DEI took a weird hit, and that like everybody was just like checkboxing things.
It's really about being a good community citizen.
Being
like show. I mean, if you elevate, you take all the words away. It's like if you want to be part of the B Corp, it's because you're committed to building the community in which your business thrives and giving back to that commitment.
You want to reflect the values of your community. You want to be taking care of the land and water and natural resources.
And so a lot of people are attracted to that message. They're like, yes, but then they get into the start of the process and they feel like, nope, you're not good enough there. Nope, you're not good. And none of us likes to get a report card. If you run a business, you're a high achiever. And you're used to, you spent your life, getting the A's. And so to start getting all this feedback of not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. I mean, none of us want rejection. It's a form of rejection. And part of your story that you shared with me is recognizing that the process was bringing up all of these feelings of rejection for people. And you really have elevated beyond B Corp now. Mm-hmm. And now you're like, I just want to be about social impact. B Corp is one avenue of having positive,
correct,
social impact. But, and this is what happens when we can step back from those internal stories, recognizing how we're caught in this narrative of judging, of policing other people. Once you recognize that and say, that's not really who I intend to be, it really does allow you to step back and say, well, who do I intend to be? And
Yes.
so how did that, so where are you in that journey, Nathan?
Well, it was interesting because yeah, it was my new business partner, Peter, said something to me one time. He's like, you've forgotten that your mission is this reimagine capitalism. B Corp is a tool in your toolbox, but it's not the only tool. And I was like, woo. And I mean, I literally have been known as Mr. B Corp for a really long time. And
Yes,
I
yes.
I'm literally wearing B Corp shoes, B Corp socks. I'm wearing Allbirds, Bombas. I got Patagonia jeans. I'm like literally wearing like half of my stuff right now on is B Corp. My backpack's from a B Corp. So anyway, like it's no shade towards that community. I just feel like, if I'm really embracing this progress over perfection thing, like my goal is to help companies get better. And any incremental progress is getting better. That's why I've been so in love with Canopy and what Scott's doing in Kentucky is like this idea that it is the journey. It's about setting a goal and getting better. And B Corp to me is like the gold standard, is where we should strive to be. And I tell everybody, you should take the assessment and just see where you are. It is a long, hard look in the mirror. And even some of the best companies I've ever worked with, now they've gotten rid of the score, but back in the day, you had to get to 80 to certify. And some of these companies would come in like, we have a 43. And you're like, most people have a 43. Like now we start the journey. But if that journey isn't for you, or I mean, whether it's, I've had companies like, we don't like to pay for certifications. Okay. Or you do business with there's some prohibited, industries like defense and gambling and alcohol, or not alcohol, like THC, like there's some industries that can't certify, or if you have too much of your revenue from those industries, you can't certify. So like, I don't want to get stuck in this like ideological purity test of like, do you have the B tattoo or not? I want to get into this world of like, I want to help every company get better. Same thing back to that like Nespresso debate of like, how do we reimagine capitalism if we aren't getting these multinationals on board? If we aren't taking these multinationals on this journey, and anybody who's certified knows how hard it is. So you can't buy the certification. You can't fake your way through the verification. And the big companies, like the audit is so rigorous that I just want to make sure that we're focused on like, look, you can still come to the party. We still want you in the party. If I still want to help you get better, like wherever you are, I joke like that old Disney ride, the People Mover of Progress. Like wherever you are on the People Mover, if you're still waiting in line, I'm going to hold my hand out and I'm going to take you and let's figure out where we can make you better. And then let's figure it out from a business perspective too, of like what makes sense for you. Like, do we need to focus on this when in reality right now I see an opportunity here that would resonate with your employer brand and your team and retention, and it would resonate with your customers. So figuring out too, like where can we get a little bit of an ROI on doing good, and let's look at that as an investment and not a like, oh god, we're gonna have to donate $1 million to charity. Well, let's be strategic with that $1 million and see if we can't turn that $1 million into charity into another 3 million in sales. And guess what? Now I just now my budget for that charity stuff goes up as well. So like finding those win-wins and finding ways to help companies do good and do well by doing good, I think is to me where I've just kind of found this like reignited passion now for this work that, yeah, I still do. I'm doing a bunch of B Corp work right now, but I can also work with companies who are like, hey, we need some work on our employer brand. And like this triangulation to me, and it's one of the beautiful things now of working with being a part of Karma Dharma, is it's a branding, creative, and culture agency. So now I can bring that social impact, and that triangle to me is it's brand and strategy, it's your culture and employer brand, and then it's social impact. Like those three things should be working together, because social impact
Yes.
should be driving your consumer and your employer brand as well. So it's opened up a world of opportunities for me to do some really, really cool work and help companies find that, like I teach in the business school, like we will reimagine capitalism when we make the business case for good business. And so focusing on just doing the right thing because it's the right thing, I wish. But at the end of the day, anybody who runs a business knows you have to make payroll, and your team wants bonuses and raises at the end of the year, and tough decisions have to be made, and vendors have to be paid. Like, oh, there's so much, man. It's so stressful. It's like, so when we get to a point of like, we can't just do the right thing because it's the right thing, or we have shareholders or whatever, like we can do the right thing because it's good for the bottom line. That's when, again, when that demand curve shifts, like that's the beauty of
Well,
capitalism.
that is a story businesses have to overcome, right? Executives might tell themselves a story. We can't afford to, it's too expensive. And what you're saying is no. It can be an engine. It can be an economic engine. It can be an employer engine, because if you're we know, like, retaining your employees is a huge cost savings to your business. It's it is triple the cost of the payroll typically to replace a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are clear about your values and you start walking those values and investing in those values, it pays off on the employer branding side. It pays off economically, because now you are attracting people who want to do business with you for the added reason, not just about what you're to your community. So yes, but it's a story. It's helping people reimagine that story, because it's so easy to just look at the cost line and not really have that imagination. Again, are you an architect? Are you just like looking at are you envisioning, you're looking at this and saying, oh, we could turn this into, and that's what you guys do, which is so amazing, is you help people architect that larger value equation that really becomes an engine.
Yeah, and I think it's getting people out of their own head too, where you think like, oh, you're just bragging about yourself. Like, I've had those companies where they're like, well, we don't like to talk about the good we're doing, we just do it. And I'm like, but it's a competitive advantage. Like, if we talk about the good we do in a great way that isn't braggy, because you can get pretty cringe on the bragging about yourself thing. If we can do it in a way that differentiates our brand and helps us sell more, by God, and we take great care of our employees, we create more awesome jobs that people really want and are really happy and fulfilled at. If you have 1% of your budget going back, or 1% of your revenue going to charitable stuff, and you grow your revenue by 10 million, yay, charity. Like, you know what I mean? Like, thinking about it is this engine of growing the good that you're doing as well, and being able to fund the good that you're doing. Like, that's where we need to kind of like reshift our focus and like how we look at, like, it's okay, and I don't want to say it's a problem in the B Corp community, but I think there's factions of the B Corp community that are maybe a little hesitant when you like there was a weird phase for like a year where they tried to call it like a stakeholder driven economic system. I was like, it's capitalism. Like, sorry, man, it's capitalism. Like, please stop. Whatever that is, but it's a reimagined capitalism. It's a stakeholder focused capitalism, but it's still supply demand. Like, we got to make, like anything, you got to make more money than you spend. Like, there's all these elements of like embracing what we can do with that and understanding, yes, what we've let capitalism become is kind of gross. I'm sitting over here. There's Thomas Piketty books on my bookshelf, like the wealth gap, all this stuff. Yes, terrible. But again, back to the Ruth Bader Ginsburg thing. How are we going to change the system? We're going to work within the system, and the system we have, and the best system I think we've discovered that's driven, innovation and humankind forward, has been capitalism. I mean, there's a map of Berlin or a little panorama behind me. Like, there's just a difference on one side of the wall to the other. And it took a really long time. And a lot of East Germany is still not caught up. And why is that? So like, we can embrace the good that comes with that system that drives innovation and rewards risk, while also realizing that maybe we can put some guardrails around it. And maybe we can police ourselves by running businesses this way. And then if we also take it upon ourselves to value where we spend our money and use the old B Corp quote of voting with our wallet, to spend our money with companies using business as a force for good, we can now reward those companies and basically economically force companies to get in line or go away. And I think you're starting to see that. Like, that's my thing with some of these multinationals becoming B Corps, is like, Nespresso's not doing it if the shareholders aren't on board. Danone, some of these Unilever subsidiaries, like, they're not doing it if there isn't an economic case to be made. And I don't understand why we're so opposed to an economic case being made.
And at that scale, those economic cases just are huge. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're coming up on our time here, and listeners, I hope that you will connect with Nathan. And if you're a business owner, I hope you will definitely connect with him to understand more about this economic engine that he is up to helping you create in your business, because it will pay off for you. But what I want you to take away most from this conversation, from my perspective, is this. None of us like to feel rejected. None of us do well when we are feeling. There's a reason that schools no longer send students to the principal's office. It's not just about not having corporal punishment. We know that just telling you bad, 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 bad shuts you down. It doesn't help you envision a different way of being. And so this story that it's your responsibility to somehow call people out or police them in some way, it's a story I really challenge you to examine, because the way you move people forward is you meet them where they are. And most religions know this and they teach this, and that's why those institutions do so well. You meet people where they are in their journey, and you connect around the possibility, and then you walk alongside them and help them along the way. If you are so busy letting them know how off mark they are, all you're doing is filling that rejection can in their minds, and you're not going to move anybody's needle that way. It's just not a way that works. So challenging the story of policing and pushing on others is something that I hope you will take away from this episode. Nathan, what would you like listeners to take away today?
Choose to do something great. I mean, is that where my "Be Great, Do Great Things" Muhammad Ali shirt? Like, do so, and it doesn't have to be like, I think we all think we have to solve the world's problems. Like, picking up a bag of trash doesn't solve the world's problems, but it's a bag of trash off the street. Like, thinking about what you can do in your own little community of, like, I clean up all the streets around my neighborhood, and like everybody knows me. They wave, they honk. Like, I've gotten to know a lot of the people. Like, just go do something. Like, go be a positive force for change in the world. I don't think it's as hard as people think. They're waiting for this like perfect opportunity to go do some really amazing stuff, and they don't realize that you don't need the perfect opportunity. Just go do good things. And same thing for businesses. Like, yeah, we can talk and put a strategy in place for you and be really intentional and make this a competitive advantage, but like, pick one area you want to improve this year and talk to your team and your marketing team, and think about all your stakeholders and go like, what's the one thing we could do better at? And just go do that this year, and you'll be better off for it. Like, again, don't this letting perfection get in the way of doing anything. Like, you're never, I mean, even Yvonne Chouinard said that from Patagonia. There is no perfect company, and there never will be. So
Right.
don't get in your own head, or as an individual, don't get in your own head. Just go do some good in the world. We need more of it.
Well, and if you're looking for a way to sort of energize and bring your team together, one of the ways that is so simple, but it really hits to the core of meaning and belonging, is let each team member choose some like nonprofit giving back to the community thing that is important to them, and then go make that your team activity for the month, and just rotate through the people. And those are the things that bring people together. That's where you start to come alongside and you find commonality. If somebody's jam is going to serve in the food kitchen, but you take your team and you do that for the day, it's going to pull the team together. Somebody else's might be picking up trash or cleaning up a local park or whatever. But these are they're really easy things to do. And if you lead a team, I highly recommend you put Nathan's play right into your playbook for this year for your team, and you will see huge dividends immediately.
100%. And ask me for help. I'll help you storytell
it. All right, friends. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad to have you with us today. Come back next week. I have Robin next Tuesday live with me. She is a trauma-informed coach helping heal the world, and you're going to want to hear her story. Nathan, it is such a delight to be in conversation with you. Thank you for saying yes and joining me today. And we'll see you guys back here next week. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. If you love this episode, leave us those 5 stars, and be sure to share this with a friend. And if you didn't, don't worry about it. See you back here next week.